You're watching someone interact with their bird. They're reading tiny shifts in body language, analyzing a slight change in chirp pattern like they're decoding Morse code, while their bird just sits across the room doing absolutely nothing. And they're thrilled about it. Meanwhile, dog owners need constant physical contact, that immediate emotional feedback, the proof of affection every 5 minutes or they spiral. Why are certain people perfectly content with a pet that offers presence without performance, affection that has to be earned like a university degree, and companionship that basically says, "I'll be over here if you need me"? Psychologists say bird owners tend to be emotionally perceptive but understated. They value independence, subtle communication, and relationships where autonomy is non-negotiable. They don't measure love by intensity or frequency. They measure it by presence, choice, a quiet loyalty. Basically, they don't want love that grips. They want love that perches nearby, judges you silently, and stays. So what's actually going on psychologically? Bird ownership isn't a casual preference. It's one of the most revealing pet choices a person can make. Unlike dogs or even cats, birds don't fully submit to human emotional gravity. You can care for them, bond with them, train them, but you never own their inner world. Even a deeply bonded bird retains its own agenda, rhythms, and moods. People who choose birds tend to be comfortable with relationships where autonomy is non-negotiable, love that is offered, not extracted, and connection that exists alongside freedom rather than replacing it. This often shows up in their human relationships too. They dislike emotional enmeshment. They recoil from guilt-based closeness. They value mutual choice over obligation. Think about it. If you're comfortable with a pet that doesn't need you every second, you're probably someone who doesn't need constant validation from people either. You're okay with space. You're okay with silence. You're okay with relationships that don't require daily proof of devotion. Next, bird owners understand that trust is built, not demanded. Birds are exquisitely sensitive. They remember tone, posture, pace, and emotional energy. You can't rush them without consequences. If you approach a bird too quickly, it retreats. If you raise your voice, it panics. If you violate its trust once, it remembers. Bird owners are often people who respect emotional boundaries instinctively, move slowly when something matters, and accept that closeness takes time. Many learned early, sometimes painfully, that pushing for intimacy backfires. Maybe they grew up in families where emotional space was violated, where affection was demanded rather than offered, where boundaries weren't respected. Birds reward patience. That reinforcement shapes a psychology that favors earned closeness over instant attachment. You don't force a bird to love you. You wait. You show up consistently. You prove yourself trustworthy. And eventually, the bird chooses you. They're also highly attuned to environmental and emotional atmosphere. Birds react to stress, chaos, anger, and tension immediately. Loud energy unsettles them. Emotional volatility disrupts their behavior. A bird can sense when you're upset before you've consciously registered it yourself. As a result, bird owners often regulate their emotional output carefully, value calm, predictable environments, and notice mood shifts before words appear. They're often the person in a room who senses when something is off, long before anyone says it out loud. Not because they're anxious, but because they're observant. They've trained themselves to read subtle cues, a slight change in breathing, a micro-expression, a shift in body language. These are the same skills they use with their birds, and they translate directly to human interactions. Bird owners are comfortable with nonverbal intimacy. Bird bonding happens through proximity, routine, tone, and shared quiet. Long stretches of connection may involve no touch at all, just coexistence. You're reading a book. Your bird is preening nearby. You're both content. There's no need for constant interaction. The presence itself is enough. Psychologically, this suggests people who don't equate closeness with constant interaction, feel connected even in silence, and are emotionally present without being intrusive. These are often people who dislike small talk, but excel at meaningful conversation. They value shared space more than constant engagement. They're the friend who can sit with you in silence for an hour, and it doesn't feel awkward. They're the partner who doesn't need to fill every moment with chatter. They understand that sometimes the deepest connection happens in the quiet spaces. They also appreciate beauty that doesn't revolve around them. Birds sing when they feel like it. They preen for themselves. Their beauty exists independently of the owner's needs. A dog performs for you. A bird exists for itself. And bird owners find that deeply satisfying. People drawn to birds tend to appreciate aesthetics without entitlement, enjoy watching rather than controlling, and find meaning in moments they didn't orchestrate. This is common in creatives, philosophers, and internally rich personalities. People whose satisfaction comes from witnessing rather than directing. They're the people who can watch a sunset without needing to photograph it, who can observe art without needing to own it, who can appreciate another person's success without needing credit. They're comfortable being the audience, not the star. Bird owners also tolerate uncertainty and emotional unpredictability. Birds can be affectionate one moment and distant the next. Their moods shift subtly. There are no guarantees. Your bird might cuddle with you today and ignore you tomorrow, and that's okay. Bird owners are often psychologically flexible. They don't panic when closeness ebbs. They don't interpret distance as rejection. And they allow relationships to breathe. This often contrasts with people who crave constant reassurance, who need to know exactly where they stand at all times, who spiral when someone takes a step back. Bird owners tend to trust the continuity of a bond, even when it's quiet. They understand that relationships have natural rhythms. Sometimes you're close, sometimes you're distant. Neither state is permanent. Neither state is personal. They value ritual, rhythm, and routine. Birds thrive on consistent daily patterns, feeding times, light cycles, familiar sounds. And their owners often mirror this. They find comfort in small rituals. They appreciate repetition rather than novelty overload. They build meaning through daily structure. This doesn't mean they're rigid. It means they find peace in predictability. Stability is emotionally grounding for them. Think about it. Every morning, same time, you uncover the cage. You refill the water. You offer fresh food. You say good morning. It's a ritual, and it anchors your day. For people who struggle with chaos, who grew up in unpredictable environments, who need something steady to hold on to, this ritual becomes sacred, and they're selective about where they place emotional energy. Birds don't bond with everyone. Neither do their owners. Bird people often keep a smaller social circle, invest deeply once trust is established, and dislike superficial or performative relationships. They may appear reserved at first, but once bonded, they're remarkably loyal and attentive. They're not cold. They're discerning. They don't waste energy on people who won't reciprocate. They don't perform for approval. They wait to see who's trustworthy. And once they decide you are, they're in. Fully. Deeply. Permanently. For some bird owners, the attraction reflects a protective distance learned early. Sometimes, they grew up with emotionally overwhelming caregivers, unpredictable attachment, or a need to stay emotionally self-contained. Maybe their parents were intrusive, maybe affection came with conditions, maybe closeness felt suffocating. Birds offer companionship without engulfment, love without pressure, presence without demand. This can be deeply soothing, but it can also reinforce emotional distance if unexamined. Healthy bird owners balance this by allowing closeness in human relationships too, without surrendering autonomy. They learn that you can be close and still be free, that you can love deeply without losing yourself, that boundaries and intimacy aren't opposites, they're partners. On a symbolic level, birds represent freedom without abandonment, connection without captivity, beauty that chooses to stay. People who own birds often resonate with this symbolism on an unconscious level. They don't want to clip wings, yours or theirs. They want relationships where both people are free to leave but choose to stay, where connection is a daily choice, not a cage. Here's what it comes down to. Bird owners are often emotionally perceptive, autonomy-respecting, comfortable with silence, patient with bonding, and drawn to chosen connection over obligation. They don't measure love by intensity or frequency. They measure it by presence, choice, and quiet loyalty. To them, the most meaningful relationships aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones that perch nearby and stay. Not because they have to, because they want to. And that makes all the difference.